how's it going, everyone? And thank you for joining me on another episode of the Music Review Podcast. Today, we're doing another album review over the latest album, debut album of Oliver Tree, titled "Ugly is Beautiful." I believe this is episode 17. So yeah, um, this is going to be a pretty cool one. Oliver Tree is sort of a unique artist and the first artist of its kind. Are the first artist of this kind that I'm covering so far on this podcast, and we'll get into that right now. So before we start, I just want to let everyone know there's a new episode of Best and Worst Track of the Week for the week of July 25th. Up right now currently. Go ahead and check that out if you haven't. Also, last album review was over the Margot Price. That's How Rumors Get Started album, her third album. If you're interested in that, go ahead and check it out. Also, just to let everyone know, if you haven't noticed, there is an Instagram page up. Got a few followers on there now. But if you're ever interested in leaving a comment about how much you hate this podcast, or if you love this podcast, or anything in between, go ahead and leave a comment, send me a DM, tell me how I'm doing, give me suggestions on what to review. Can't promise I'm going to review it, but love to hear some feedback. But other than that, yeah, let's get started. Episode 17, like I said before, this is going to be over the debut album of Oliver Tree, of which, if you're not familiar with Oliver Tree is an American singer-songwriter from Santa Cruz, California. And Oliver Tree is a hodgepodge of a lot of things. Mainly in Wikipedia, he's listed as a singer, songwriter, producer, rapper, comedian, and filmmaker. Um, Really, just to simplify all those things, Oliver Tree is a internet personality, and internet personalities are phenomenons that are really starting to really put their foot into music. A lot of quote unquote YouTubers or influencers over the years have gotten into music for various reasons, probably to expand their brand, probably being the primary reason. People like Gabby Hanna, of which I don't really know much about her, but I know I've seen her music appear time to time. Jake Paul, of course, the whole meme music that him and Rice Gum have made. And then also there's been some quality as well. I know there's been some rappers that are YouTubers. I think I saw a review not too long ago on the Needle Drop where he covered a rapper that is a YouTuber, and gave them a pretty decent score for what it was really. So when you have a person like Oliver Tree, you kind of have to approach it in a way where I think that their music is really greater than just the notes or what the sounds are. Um, it's kind of more of like a artistic, or I guess philosophical way of thinking. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but he is a self-proclaimed surrealist pop artist, whatever the hell that means. You can look up the word surrealist and kind of define it your own way, but basically, this is something that I think we're probably going to see much more of in the music industry. And Oliver Tree really is just kind of being the pioneer of some sort with this kind of music he makes, I think. Um, Now, just to go on some history about him, there's really not much to know other than he signed a record deal with Atlantic Records in 2017 when his song When I'm Down became popular. That's literally all it says on Wikipedia. So uh, there's really not much to really decipher other than it probably became popular on the internet. I remember the first time I ever saw him was on a video of some YouTube comedy page, or maybe I was just scrolling through Twitter or something, and it's this goofy dude just doing stupid shit on a scooter with this really obnoxious personality. And really, that's what you get from him 100% of the time. Uh, no one really knows if that's really him or not, but in interviews, he plays the character to a T. Um, but nonetheless, let's go into the music. He is also a hodgepodge when it comes to styles. His best described as like 90s music, um, and 90s genres coming into just one thing. So, like 90s alt rock, 90s rap, some EDM influences, and just maybe like old school rap beats thrown in into like this kind of rock style that is very also similar to modern alt rock. So, stuff that you can hear like on Alt Nation on Sirius XM. So if like Cage the Elephant, Imagine Dragons, and 21 Pilots, kind of like left some crumbs on like the cutting board, and you took those crumbs and uh, decided to make a meal out of those crumbs. That's probably a terrible way to put it, but that's kind of what Oliver Tree is, with those crumbs being combined with like these nostalgic influences from the 90s. So, how does the album sound? Is this good music? Is it just a joke? Well, I mean, that's for the listeners to decide. I'm not here to tell you um, anything other than my own opinion and how I felt about the songs. Um, but if you separate um, the persona from the actual, I guess, compositions, the music, the actual notes, the textures, the ideas thrown in this album really is pretty good. It kicks off with the track Me, Myself, and I. It's a song that has these thin lead guitar lines, steady and punchy bass and rhythm guitar lines as well. Um, it has like a sort of mechanical nature in the percussion and overall production, kind of like a stroke song, like a very straightforward stroke song, um, with some modern rhythmic pop ideas thrown in with syncopated breakdowns. It's a steady and straightforward tune. Um, Here you can kind of get a feeling for Oliver Tree's, I guess, songwriting style. The album doesn't really give me much of a highlight until the second track, 1993, featuring Little Ricky. This is honestly one of the best songs I've heard this year. I love the groove that introduces the track. I love how the bass drum kick just slaps you in the face throughout the whole entire track. There's some danceability to it. It sounds futuristic with this cutting, like heavy synths that are just like these really like abrasive like sounds. It blends genres pretty well. There's some EDM, there's pop, there's hip hop. It's all tastefully done. There's a trap breakdown at the end too that is just it's a very natural feeling. I love how the vocal lines are melodic and tastefully performed as well. Kind of like how the way I put it is it's not lazily sang, but it's also not overbearing. So it's not like you have like a drunk Kid Cudi singing, but also not like a Florence Welch or Aretha Franklin belting. It's somewhere in between, and it's nice. Next track is Cash Machine. This one's a pretty nice track as well. It has organic textures with the acoustic guitar, which happens several times throughout this album. There's some qualities of modern alt rock, especially with the chorus breakdown, instrumental part. So, of course, like I said before, a bunch of shit that you hear on Alt Nation. Um, uh, this track thus far has the most catchy and hooky parts on the album, even though it's the third track. Um, the topic of the song, there's themes of superficialness in society and music. So I guess kind of playing on the idea what Oliver Tree proclaims to be, he's really just being a reflection of society. I don't know if everyone feels that way about this song, but that's kind of what I took from it. The next highlight was the fifth track, Miracle Man. This one has a groovy bass guitar line in the verse. I really like that. There's an accompanying electric guitar that's nice too. It's all sort of subtle and natural feeling. I like the variations on the verses too, with the vocals and the acoustic guitar. The choruses are executed quite well as well, with these refrains and the electric guitars just giving the track a lot of energy. The only thing I'd say about this song and many songs that appear on this album is that they're just a tad bit short. So like the sounds and the performances are good. Um, like the track is fine, but it just doesn't develop anywhere, or it just cuts off too short. The next track is "Bury Me Alive." This is another track. This is track number six. This is a track that I thought was pretty well performed, because this is the first track on the album that has a rap verse or a rap part. And Oliver Tree is a pretty good rapper. He's by no means a top tier rapper, but this is kind of like a Beastie Boy like performance, very quirky and eccentric, all the way from like the instrumentals to the rap parts. It's a very like 90s aesthetic. The beat is very 90s, and it supports the rap verses and the rap flows very well. Um, and then the song does develop throughout with like these catchy refrains in the bridge, and it has really groovy bass lines that color that track nicely as well. The next track, the seventh song, is probably my favorite on the album, Alien Boy. It's probably one of the most captivating tracks. It's just so quirky and eccentric. There's weird lyrics thrown uh, in and out of this. It's kind of stupid, but at the same time, like you wouldn't expect anything else from Oliver Tree. The beat fits really well in with the vocal line. I like the like keys that are just laying down the bright chords that color the track nicely. The bass line is groovy. It's overall just one of the best, most solid tracks on here. We'll skip over one track. I think the next highlight would be Again and Again. Again Again is just a stripped down track. Kind of just it begins with just vocals, bass, and drums in the intro. The only criticism I really have is I wish the bass sounded clearer. It's a little muddy. It has a really hooky refrain with that part that just says "Keep your head up." It's a very alt rock stylistically. A lot of rhythmic guitars that's structuring the choruses. The guitars sound really nice and clear throughout the track with like these eighth note build ups and syncopated rhythmic ideas. So just another straightforward, cool alt rock track. Waste My Time. This one is another highlight. The next track after Again and Again, the vocals and bass lines kind of line up melodically and rhythmically in the intro. I love the punchiness of that drum track. It has a very like loose and relaxed mood and feel throughout the track. Uh, it's kind of a track that makes you surprised that this isn't a full band. Actually, I get that feeling a lot throughout this. That this is really just one dude laying down a lot of this stuff, or this is just coming from him, which is a kind of a trend that's going on right now, but it's mainly happening on like the bedroom indie rock kind of scene with artists like Alex G, Claro, um, stuff like that, where you get a guy or an artist, woman, whatever, that has kind of a concept for some sort of project, and everything is played by them except when they tour. This is kind of what's happening here, but more of just like a more mainstream or alt kind of thing going on. I feel like this track, Waste My Time, borrows a lot from artists like Beck. I guess Beck was kind of one of the first artists to pioneer like the do it yourself everything. Him and like maybe Trent Reznor, uh, that are like from the 90s, of course. There's probably artists that have done that since forever, but yeah, Waste My Time, nice big moments that develop throughout the track. I like the piercing guitar parts and gang vocals that happen as well. Jerk, here's an interesting highlight as well because it's very emo sounding. There's like a minor guitar riff in the intro with these sad lyrics. I like the heaviness and the tone of the bass line. It sounds like it could have been from an emo band from the 2000s if they developed into something more modern today and like incorporated trap beats into their music. It's kind of what this sounds like. The guitar line's a little cliche and generic. I'd say that'd be one of my criticisms. The chorus is the best part of the track by far, with the heaviness of those guitars and the track beat, the trap beat, just giving everything momentum. It all lines up really nice. Hurt is the next track. It's probably one of the better tracks on here too. I love the intro and how it sets the rest of the song up. There's a steadiness to it that makes you anticipate the rest of the track. I love the deep synth bass line in the deep synth line in the verse. Technically, that's a bass line. The nice build up with the vocals and the guitars. It's very 21 Pilots like aesthetically. That's a nice track in my opinion. The next track, Introspective. This is where I feel like the weaker part. We're pretty much at the end. This is the second to last song. This is probably like the one of the weaker parts on this album. I'd say the vocal performance can feel a little strained at times. The songwriting is a little bit weaker than the rest of it, the rest of the album. It's more stripped down. The moments don't hit as hard. I'd say that's my ideas and feelings on that. I'm Gone is another track that I wasn't too fond of. Um, it starts with like this intro that has like these interesting harmonic ideas thrown in. It's very strange sounding. It has this big rock chorus with this heavy bass line supporting the track. However, the production, in my opinion, everything just sounds so squashed. It doesn't sound, even though it's supposed to sound big, it doesn't sound as big as I think it could have. The snare sound really bothers me as well. It just doesn't really kind of mesh. Um, but this is another example of like how this could easily be confused for like a full band, but this is not a full band, and um, that's something that I think is interesting in this album because there's a lot of areas and parts of the album that sound like a solo artist, but there's times where I'm just like, oh, this could be a band, or a band could have made this and no one would have noticed. But overall, I do like this album. Um, 7 out of 10 in my opinion. Um, some areas could have been probably there could have been some areas where there's stuff trimmed out on the album, but apparently this took 3 years to release for various reasons. No one really knows why because no one really knows if Oliver Tree's serious or not. But apparently this is his last album too, according to him, because being an artist is too much promotion, which I guess that can be pretty annoying if you're not fond of doing that stuff. But yeah, give this album a shot if you're into music that has like a hint of experimental touches that borrows from mainstream genres that kind of just sounds unique at the end of the day. I think you might like this. If Oliver Tree annoys you, like they did, like the person that Pitchfork had review him, you're probably not going to like this album. But yeah, I will be reviewing some stuffs sooner rather than later. Hopefully, Taylor Swift just dropped an album. I might be doing that. So far, I've listened to some of it. Ellie Goulding has something new in there too. Also, like post punk stuff like Proto Martyr, the Cloud Nothings album. So, yeah, thanks for listening. If you made it this far, take care of yourselves. I'll see y'all later.